Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Biblical Prepping. I'm Judith Garten. This is the prepper portion, and I'm here in the kitchen today. I am going to take a break in a moment from the introduction while a few things start happening here in the kitchen. I have this whole list of things to accomplish this morning before 11 a.m. It gives me 1 hour and approximately 45 minutes to get things done. One of those things is going to be a pasta salad for myself for brunches that I need to get in the fridge to chill, and a vegetable and egg salad for Jim that needs to get into the fridge to chill because that is our brunch today, and those are going to be for a couple of days. So this morning I am going to start a pot of milk scalding for homemade ricotta, also known as farm cheese. And for those who don't know what ricotta is, it's ricotta. I'm so used to saying it as ricotta that I can't say ricotta. There we go, ricotta cheese. Just used to saying ricotta. Anyway, I also need to make a batch of my butter mix, which is butter and olive oil, which makes it a little bit softer for spreading, and you don't have to use as much butter on your food. I also, I have bananas that need to get sliced and into the freezer, as well as asparagus to take care of. I want to introduce a new product, which is my fry pot. It's actually not quite as new as I thought. You would think. I've been using it for about 6 months. And then my final project for the day might actually take place this afternoon because I forgot to take the meat out last night. It is a recipe from my Make a Mix cookery books, and we'll get into that later. So the first project I'm going to start is I'm going to pour the milk into the pot and get it going. So, all right, this is a little bit over a half a gallon of milk. This milk is not just whole milk. It is also 1/2 quart of half and half. Now, I am very picky about my milk and my half and half. I actually, on a lot of occasions, I see that half and half has 20 other ingredients in it, and that might be an exaggeration. However, not quite. You end up with your carrageenan and your guar gum, some other gums or starches and whatnot to make your milk heavier, thicker, or your half and half or cream heavier, thicker, and whatnot. I don't like those ingredients, so I actually have simply been buying Friendly Farms half and half from Aldi. Wait till you hear the radical ingredients in here. This contains milk and cream. It is literally half and half. I always get a kick out of, my one sister was the one who first pointed it out. She says, wait a minute, how can they still call it half and half when it's not half milk and half cream anymore? It is milk, cream, and all those other ingredients. The Friendly Farms from Aldi. I love it. It is not a whipping cream, so that's not what it's for. But any recipe that calls for heavy cream, I actually use this over heavy cream a lot of times. It's less expensive and fewer ingredients. I have to check. I want to check the Aldi heavy cream because I haven't actually. Jim uses this in his coffee as well. I always buy, when I can buy it, I buy 1 container for cooking and 1 container for his coffees. So what I did was I had a half of a container left that was a day or 2 away from expiration. Now, away from expiration doesn't mean it's a bad thing. So it doesn't have to be bad, going bad or whatever. In fact, it's probably better if it's not going back or curdled, just to say. But it makes a much better farm cheese or ricotta if I have this extra cream in there. So this is about 1/3 of a gallon of milk and 1/2 quart of half and half. Now I'm going to put this back in the fridge. The equipment you're going to need: a spatula, or a wooden spoon. I prefer a spatula because it doesn't, especially the silicone pampered chef spatulas, they don't retain flavors. And I actually made a ricotta one time that had a little bit of a curry flavor left on it because I had used the wooden spoon to make a coconut curry a few days earlier. No matter how much you wash it, it doesn't necessarily remove the flavors. So I prefer the silicone spatula. Plus, the flat edge helps you scrape the bottom of your heavy bottom stainless steel pan. You're going to need white vinegar. You're also going to need sea salt. Now, I prefer to use the white sea salt, like the Celtic sea salt or the Mediterranean sea salt. This is actually Private Selections Mediterranean sea salt. It's got a little bit of pink salt in it, mixed in it, because I had poured it into a container that had just like a teaspoon of pink in the bottom. I do not like to use the pink Himalayan to make the farm cheese because it gives it a weird hue, and it doesn't bother me, but it might bother other people. All right, what I'm going to do is I need to put my hair up so it doesn't end up in all the food. And I was giving it a little time to dry. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pour in this milk and half combo into my heavy bottom pot. I actually prefer to use a tall-sided 3-quart pot for making this. However, I don't own a 3-quart pot anymore. Mine is only 2.5 quarts, and the milk does not fit. All right, so what I do is I turn this on about not quite medium. Want it to heat up fast, but not burn. Some people do not add the salts until after they are dealing with the curds. I prefer to add it in the beginning because, and it's just a pinch of salt, it just gives it a little bit of flavor. I prefer to do that because it rounds out the flavor for me. And I save the whey left over from the curds and I freeze it and use it in soups. Now I also have my thermometer. So the equipment list again is your heavy bottom stainless steel pot, your milk, and like I said, I prefer milk and half mix, your spatula or wooden spoon. You're going to need a thermometer because you want to get the milk up to about 180 degrees. That's where it makes the better cheese when you're going to use it as ricotta. You need your sea salt, just a pinch, and you're going to need about 1/2 cup of white vinegar and a measuring cup. That's it. Now I'm going to leave this here for a few minutes while I go put up my hair, but I'm also going to start this pot of hard-boiled eggs for our pasta salad, which is in another video, which I will link to. These eggs need to be brought to a full rolling boil, and I will explain the rest from there. What I did was I took out 6 eggs from the fridge, put them in an empty pot, ran cold water into the pot. It will take a little longer to heat up, but I tend to crack fewer shells that way, me personally. So I'm going to put this one on high, and I'll be right back. All right, my milk is heated to 185 degrees, 184, somewhere thereabouts. Now, it did develop some skin on top. You can see that here. I take that out. I do not leave that in. All right, now the simple thing you do next is take your white vinegar, want 1/2 cup. Remembering the salt is already in here. I have turned the burner off. And you just want to drizzle around. And it will start to curdle. So simple. Now, if for some reason it's not curdling a lot, because of the amount of milk that I had. I might need to throw in 1 extra tablespoon roughly. Don't want it to taste too sour or vinegar. So, all right. That is separating nicely into the curds. Now I will need to let it cool down a little bit. I will strain it through a strainer into a stainless steel bowl. And then I will strain the fluid again through a cloth, a 100% cotton cloth. And see how nicely it separated the curds and the whey. I'm scraping the bottom just to get any of the cheese up off the bottom. And there we go. All right. Now I'm going to let that cool for about 15 minutes and I'll show you the next step. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to strain it now. It's not quite as cool as I'd like it to be, but I really need to get it in the freezer to do a quick chill. I'll be using my 2-cup measuring cup as a scoop into my Pampered Chef bowl here. I will be using this strainer. Now, I don't feel like burning my hands holding onto it, and I have a bad habit of doing funny stuff. So what I'm going to actually do is set that inside my Pampered Chef small strainer to help hold the. And what's the difference? This one is a fine mesh, not super fine mesh. I have other ones that are much more fine, and this is not. So this is going to stop a lot more of the curds and just let through the whey. I have it angled the wrong direction here for my hand. There we go. And as I pour some out onto the counter, there we go. And what I need is a bowl to put the ricotta in. And I'm going to grab this one right here. So as it strains, I can put it in there. Now, if I want to use the ricotta as a slicing cheese, I'm going to want it to strain much more water out. If I want to use it as a plopping cheese, like on pizza and whatnot, I will leave a little bit more of the whey in the cheese. So, and I'm leaning toward slicing because I want to be able to put this into the veggie salad for Jim and the pasta salad for myself. But the first strain is just the water, the whey. So I'm not necessarily worried about straining completely just yet. Now, when it comes to the whey, I've turned in my mother and turned into my grandmother, and I have saved a bunch of sour cream tubs, cottage cheese tubs, you name it, tubs. And I have those in a cupboard. I put the whey in those because they're easy to set into like some warm water. And when you do that, once you set it into the warm water and the outer edges thaw, you can easily dump those containers into a soup pot, Instapot, whatever you're making. The nice thing about the whey is it's a little bit higher in protein than, say, like a chicken broth or whatever, but it's really nice to just take that and make half chicken broth in your soup and half of the whey. And the nice thing about the whey is that you can add bouillon to it. I prefer to use a particular bouillon. It's not shelf stable. It is better than bouillon. I like the beef, and I like the chicken, and I like the vegetables. So we are almost done. We need our spatula to scrape all the rest of the cheesies out. See how high the whey is getting in the Pampered Chef glass bowl there. All right, then take that out. Now this next step of straining will be done back into the original pot. I want to make sure you have a good look at that. I'm going to use my medium-sized Pampered Chef strainer, and I will be going like so. We're going to put this through, or in here, and we're going to put the cheese through first and let it drain. I have these glass storage containers with snap-on lids. I'm going to put the ricotta in there once it is nicely strained. And for this, you might want to squeeze or press on it, get out extra fluid and whey. And even use your bowl. This will make a more block style cheese. All right, I don't want it to be too dry, but there we go. See how nice it is? Then you just roll it up and plop it into your storage container, whatever you're going to be using. Yes, I have used plastic. I just like these glass ones because they make a nice block shape. Fabric is stuck. There we go. All right. Now this cheese will be good in the refrigerator for 3 to 5 days. It doesn't usually last that long in ours. And there we go. All done. Like I said, I want that to go in some of our salad, so I'm going to put it in the freezer for a quick freeze or quick chill. And next we strain the rest of the whey. So for straining the rest of the whey, it's just as simple as pouring it through this cloth. These all go into the sink to get a quick wash. Did get a lot of small particles out, but that's actually not enough to save per se. So I will just strain that, and that will get rinsed later. And I am going to set aside the whey and take care of that after I'm done with a couple of other projects. One of which is going to be wiping all this water and whey off of the island. So that is our homemade ricotta and farm cheese. Easy peasy. You can also, as you have strained it, you can mix in herbs and make an herbed cheese that is nice for a pizza or in a lasagna, even in casseroles. So that is another option. Please Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and more information will be down below in the description, as well as any videos that I need to share with you. And if you have any questions, please write them in the comments. I will be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. Blessings and shalom.